Wishing all you unbreakable folks a powerful morning.
Morning, good morning.
Well, this is just some kind of disgrace. Corruption in the government is reaching such levels that they have to fire the US ambassador, the Ukrainian ambassador to the US because, well, something's not right there.
A little digression.
And firing Prime Minister Can you? I mean, it's getting to the point of absurdity. Corruption has eaten away at the system so much that I'm honestly surprised it's still holding together. Degradation, degradation. So let's discuss all of this today, and then there's also this coalition of the lustful...
For something. Digressia. They're capable of something. It seems like they are digressia. They're coming out.
They want to hold some kind of conference again. Wonderful, I think. First, let's see what's going on with human rights in Ukraine. As always, everything is wonderful. So, for example, here's a case where several men gathered in a certain hotel in Zakarpattia. These men wanted to leave the country, to cross the border from Ukraine, to leave this wonderful paradise of Ukraine and smartphones, but it didn't work out, because law enforcement and border guards, who are known to protect the borders, found out about it. They are so powerful that they don't let anyone leave their beloved homeland, so they start throwing the men out of the hotel and beating the hell out of them. So it's not just about snatching them up into vans or registering them by force, but actually shoving them in. But of course, all these people are wearing balaclavas. And before, when people asked why they run around with those things on their heads like bandits, they used to say in winter that they were cold, supposedly because they spend many hours outdoors. Their ears get cold, their eyebrows get cold, their barbershop beards get cold, and in the summer, well, I don't know how to explain it then. Is it protection against mosquitoes, maybe? Protection against bees, of course I'm exaggerating, that's sarcasm. They just hide their faces so they won't be recognized, because when they are, all sorts of things start happening. But as always, I'm not showing the full video because YouTube doesn't allow this kind of violence, so you can watch it by pointing your phone or tablet camera at this QR code. You'll go straight to the Telegram channel with this video, which is already uploaded, or if you're watching me from a mobile device, there's a link in the description. Go there and watch. What about resignations? Here we have Zelensky looking a bit down. And he's telling us that Sverdenko resigned absolutely unexpectedly and spontaneously. Moreover, these reshuffles are really happening very spontaneously. That's why many of the personnel decisions look very strange. But here, it's not just about who is in the opposition, but also about who is directly subordinate to the president, because people don't understand what's going on. And here's what's happening. On July 12, Zelensky announced reshuffles in the cabinet. At the same time, Prime Minister Yulia Sverdenko was the first to be dismissed. And naturally, since she is the Prime Minister, the entire cabinet of ministers resigns along with her. That means the Rada could approve the resignation of the cabinet as early as July 13 or 14. So that means it will happen today or tomorrow. And what does it lead to? In the end, they'll just swap one for another, nothing will really change. But what's more interesting here isn't who gets swapped for whom, because it won't make any difference anyway. But what's the actual reason? They're telling us here that, first of all, the government's resignation was spontaneous, and secondly, it was a forced move. Moving Sverdenko from Prime Minister to Ambassador to the US is a somewhat forced move that the authorities weren't really ready for. The final decision was made today at a meeting at 1:00 p.m. That's why all the other steps weren't really thought through. In this meeting, Sverdenko herself confirmed her resignation and stated that she might become the new ambassador of Ukraine to the US. What do you think about that? So, the Prime Minister, which is a position just half a step below the President, becomes an ordinary ambassador. Yes, it seems like it's the Ukrainian ambassador to the US, which means it's the most important ambassador right now, but still, it's clearly a demotion. And here you can really see, in general, that this is all panic. And the problem? The whole point is that NABU, which is an anti-corruption agency created by the US to fight corruption in Ukraine, strange as it may sound, but that's the case, can actually serve a notice of suspicion on the Ukrainian ambassador to the US, Olha Stefanishina. And maybe they can announce this suspicion, because it turns out that nothing like this has ever happened before. And once again, Stefanishina, according to rumors on the internet, bought apartments for her relatives at a price that is very different from the market value. Well, if you think that she overpaid for these apartments, then I think you understand that's a mistake. In fact, she underpaid. Again, this is according to rumors from the internet because such things are not published, and in my opinion, this is as shameful as it gets. Right now, all of this is held together only by the concept, by the whole porcupine with quills concept. That is, Europe and the US see that this porcupine can defend Europe without much harm to Europe itself, except that Europe is not in a very good economic state right now. And accordingly, all the members of this powerful group draw their own conclusions. That's one thing. And secondly, they still take into account that Ukraine is at war. And if Ukraine stops fighting, then in places like Poland or Germany, people believe that they'll have to fight themselves. No one wants to do that. Moreover, surveys show that almost any man who might be called up for military service in a war that brings them close to death refuses. And they say, come on, I'd rather leave this place and go somewhere else, maybe to South America or anywhere else, just not here. And they really can do it, but as for protecting Europe from people of conscription age leaving, from that valuable pool of draft age people as it's usually called, that's another matter. But that whole monster is more complex than in Ukraine since rights are somewhat better here and people are accustomed to freedom and protests. Although, on the other hand, back in 2014, Ukrainians also considered themselves super free. They thought they could change the president, change everything. If they didn't like someone, they'd send them away, send this one away, send that one away. But now they're beating and catching those very participants or their descendants in those very hotels when they try to leave the country, and they're being hit with various criminal charges, so nothing good can come of this. Maybe something like this could happen in Europe too. Who knows? Then it turns out that Ukraine also has a new strategy, so right away they start trying to come up with some kind of justification for this disgrace. They have to justify it since the partners know what's happening. But they have to sell all this to the public somehow, and they sell it under the pretext that the government needs to be restructured to address new energy challenges. Here I want to ask, are you serious? Is everything okay? Changing one thing for another only makes sense if there's at least a new candidate for Minister of Energy of Ukraine. Some person who started out as an ordinary electrician at some vocational school, and step by step gradually moved up to an administrative position, then a higher position and higher, and this energy and administrative genius suddenly becomes the minister. But no, for example, the same Minister of Defense, an IT specialist, by the way, he's now being considered for the position of Prime Minister, meaning a person with no administrative management experience is being put there. Yes, the same Prime Minister Kenya also didn't work in particularly high positions before, which would allow us to judge her competence. Actually, she doesn't have much experience at all, so it's extremely interesting here. And they're telling us that some other associate of Mindich is also coming to power, even though Mindich seems to be under suspicion, but in general, one hand washes the other, it's all just great. They're telling us that even people close to those in power have a lot of questions. The speed of the process surprised even those who are following all of this from the inside. What became the main factor in the demands of international partners? Was it the need to restructure the state apparatus to meet new energy challenges? Or was it preparing the team for future political processes? It's hard to say for now. That's how they beautifully wrap up these not so pleasant things in nice wording, but it still takes effort to do that, and that's the whole point. To convince that same public. In reality, Occam's razor works here again. It's a very simple logical tool that allows you to cut off the unnecessary. If a cup falls on the floor and breaks, you could try to explain it by the actions of some Anunnaki or neutron stars, or the telepathy of your neighbor Vasya, who suddenly came out of delirium tremens. But most likely it was just slippery on the countertop because some water was spilled there, or the cup, under the influence of temperature, moved forward and fell. Well, usually the simplest solution is the correct one, with few exceptions. Well, of course you could make up all sorts of theories and assume that one day Zelensky's government suddenly started caring about Ukraine's energy sector, even though they didn't lift a finger in all the previous periods. Of course you could, but why would we do that? We're all reasonable people, we went to school. We more or less understand what's what, and that's it, ordinary logic prevails. But here there just isn't any. In the reshuffles, if you look at it, whether it's some kind of partner challenges or some kind of energy stuff, no there isn't. Most likely what people were suspicious about, that's probably exactly what it is. Well, and also look at Stefanishina. In general, she has changed a lot recently. She used to look completely different. And she's suddenly asked to end her diplomatic service due to personal reasons. And here again they say that the candidates for the position of Prime Minister could be the current Minister of Energy Denis Shmyhal, Minister of Defense Mikhailo Fedorov, the Mayor of Kharkiv Ihor Terekhov, and the Chairman of the Board of Naftogaz Ukraine Serhiy Koretsky. And here they say that the main contender is the previous head of Naftogaz, the former head of the Ministry of Unity, Chernyshov, Zelensky's close associate. This very Koretsky. Apparently he's Mindich's man. Well, in short, there are a lot of interesting people here who perform all sorts of interesting functions within the state. Well, you see, you can stack the deck and everyone will become, whoever was nothing will become everything. The second disgrace. Here, information started to slowly emerge about what's going on with that very commander of the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade who suddenly went AWOL, meaning he deserted from military service. And before that, he sent 9 of his subordinates to deal with 2 people who supposedly threatened, or not even threatened, but insulted his wife. Well, can you imagine the level of all this? If in a super democratic country a military unit commander can send his subordinates to kill 2 people he simply doesn't like. Well, just imagine this situation. Although for many there's no need to imagine it anymore. But still, and then it turns out, well, you might also think maybe there was some deadly threat to his wife. Maybe there were. Well, in general, some insults were thrown at her that made him snap and decide to defend her. But no. It turned out that, the explanation was simple. Let me show you where it is. Here. The residents of the village of Kalinovka told the publication that the brothers had been kidnapped and murdered and their bodies were exhumed. They may have been kidnapped due to a conflict with the commander's wife who complained about motorcycle noise. Well, honestly, I'm even afraid to comment on this because this is some kind of, the quintessence of horror, the quintessence of stupidity, the quintessence of malice, aggressiveness. Yes, every bad character trait you can think of is part of this concentrated mix, so to speak. And here it's already a question of how suitable Ukraine will be for living after the war. Well, these same comrades, they will immediately become, you know what I mean. So, what was the issue? The wife of this very commander of the 155th Separate Marine Brigade, she was bothered by motorcycles. Her husband sent 9 fellow soldiers to deal with the brothers, and then it turned out that they only had 1 motorcycle. It was just a single motorcycle. They found their relative. They didn't find the motorcycle. They found the 2 of them. And the heated-up soldier, a beautiful big woman, dragged innocent people into the forest and killed them. Well, at least that's the assumption in all the media, so this whole story hasn't been unraveled yet. But it turned out that one of those killed was also a soldier. He took part in the defense of Kyiv and was a grenade launcher operator. He also had children. Well, this kind of thing is a total mind-bender. And this isn't the first case. This one just got uncovered. And just imagine how many of these cases remain unsolved. In my opinion, there are very few criminal cases being investigated in Ukraine right now. Someone goes missing and that's it. They're just gone, for God's sake. Who knows, nowadays hundreds of thousands go missing at the front, so what's 1 or 2 people? Well, that's that. And third, what else? Third, here we have some guy with the nickname Flash. He says that Russia is preparing to attack Ukrainian targets up to 100 kilometers deep. The targets could be gas stations, post offices, and more. So basically it turns out that Ukraine is grinding down Russia's infrastructure. Russia is grinding down Ukraine's infrastructure. And everyone is just watching this happen. They're not shouting, hooray, hooray, Paparemo, victory. All the patriots there are rushing to kiss and hug each other. They're like, hooray, another gas station hit. Or they destroyed an oil refinery, but these people don't see it. What's happening is basically 2 countries destroying each other. And there, if before those same strikes on oil refineries were still being called sneaky bites, now some little mosquito is already being compared to a flying anaconda. So that's why, well, naturally there was retaliation against Ukraine. Flash actually has a completely different name. I don't understand why they use these nicknames, I just don't get it. Especially since he's an official and he's actually an advisor to the Ukrainian Minister of Defense on technological matters. And he also has this thing, well, anyway. And he states that Russia's war against Ukraine is shifting from combat operations on the front lines to a phase of massive deep strikes and medium-range strikes. Because why use anglicisms in Russian or Ukrainian texts? I don't understand. Is it just trendy? Is it supposed to sound better? Deep strike sounds better than long-range strike. What kind of nonsense is that, really? They've corrupted their own language, and now let's also try import substitution. Anyway, both sides are laying the groundwork ahead of possible peace negotiations. That's some way to prepare for peace negotiations. Honestly, I'm not a diplomat, but I thought it would look a little different. But this is how it's being done. So it will be a scorched, resourceless strip. Its width is 100 kilometers. There won't be any gas, no stores, not even postal warehouses. Postal warehouses are being bombed because, well, that's just how it is. The planes are flying, so we'll bomb, as they said. Zelensky. Well, in Europe, they immediately come out strongly in defense of Ukraine. A bunch of these so-called powerful leaders, decisive coalitions, are gathering in Paris so that once again, well, the guys need to get together. The guys, really, they need to get together. They're gathering on Monday at Les Invalides in Paris. Quite a telling name, of course. Before the large-scale celebrations for Bastille Day. In short, a lot is going on. See, that's the point. It's like in Love and Hunger. There was an old man there, and he really loved to sing and drink. Well, that's one of the reasons. And what, Bastille Day? I think it was even in the flip calendar, in the video. And here there also needs to be a reason for powerful leaders to meet. Well, obviously it won't be vodka, but rather Amaro with champagne. Well, I mean, they will be supporting Ukraine. Sorry, my mistake. Yes, a whole 25 heads of state will be supporting Ukraine. Their deputies, godfathers, in-laws, and all of them will be actively supporting. By the way, Trump once brought about 1,500 people with him to some meeting. Trump alone brought 1,500 people there for something. Well, in the end, this very format now unites 37 countries. The guys liked meeting up. Now Moldova and North Macedonia will also be there with champagne, supporting Ukraine. And what's the goal anyway? Well, besides the fact that the guys are, well, just guys, also it's supposed to be about missile defense. Europeans and Ukrainians will work closely together, as if they're not working together already. There will be some kind of security guarantees implemented. Every day they implement these security guarantees. And if they're in a good mood, they might implement them 2 or even 3 times a day. For those who have enough stamina, and there will be a big parade on July 14th. In short, the program is just amazing. Naturally, you can expect intensified bombing of Kyiv, because a strong leader will come to storm the Bastille. Everyone else just has to accept it, because this is a guarantee of security. Come on, really? This isn't just some random thing. Well, let's take another look. Not just read, but also see what all these leaders think about what's happening today. We need to think. Thinking is good, and here we have several people at once who are trying to do that. Or replace actual thinking. Well, for example, Fedina, who usually likes to sing. This is actually Deputy Kinya, who, I don't know, has she ever had even one law passed? Any law at all, at least one that improves people's quality of life. But now Fedina is saying that Lviv, all of this whole rebellion of Lviv residents against the draft office is Putin's doing. She has almost found Putin's business card. Well, if she hasn't found it yet, she will soon. She'll go and find it.
People are now happy to find the service, and when they attack someone in uniform...
A person in uniform. Obviously, you can beat someone without a uniform, says Fedina, who isn't in uniform herself. I'm curious what she would say if one of her relatives got hurt. Well, she would say, that's fine, people in uniform weren't hurt. The man no longer knows what he's saying and avoids eye contact.
These are the exact words from Budanov. Law enforcement did not intervene or stop it during the entire hour. We can see there in the photos and videos only the provocateurs.
Yeah, these are all provocateurs. Suddenly, thousands of talking heads started following Zelensky's concept, talking about a provocation. Even though this event itself was, well, completely spontaneous and accidental. What provocations? How provocation? What are you even talking about? So, you're saying there was some special group of people standing there looking out for the military recruitment officers, suddenly started provoking them into rough actions. And then started provoking even more, getting involved. Probably in the Telegram channel they want to shut down in Ukraine along with their other accomplices. It seems everyone is going public through Ukraine. And as a result, they provoked this until the event was filled with hundreds of people. This is probably the basic concept. That's what Fadina's trying to articulate, but she can't since you generally need something to formulate anything. Yeah, well...
You can't come in, people from Dnipro. My team is already mobilized.
There were people from Dnipro and Lviv. Can you imagine? There were people from Dnipro and Lviv. But there can't be people from other cities in Lviv because, well, that's what Fadina says. If, for example, someone from Brazil is in America, that's impossible too. A Brazilian provocateur has arrived. If, say, in some hypothetical Africa, a person from Russia arrives, that's also a provocateur. Or if someone from Sweden is in Greenland, they're probably a provocateur too. Fadina has excellent logical thinking, really.
It's necessary to replace those already forced onto the front lines.
Well, so look, there's a guy sitting on the left, a sharp young man with a laptop. He could even replace Fadina. I think he could immediately replace a whole division of some characters with his might. And he can sing too. So just imagine, there will be even more singers at the front right away. That's just wonderful. Well, that's how things are. And then there's another one, a character with the nickname Kupol. The previous one was Flash, and this one is Kupol. And this Kupol says that we need to create conditions for a riot in Moscow. Planes are flying, we're going to bomb, says Kupol.
We could have shut down the economy and their finances. They still have VPNs and internet, but authorities are slowly restricting access, making it more like North Korea. But, you know, as they say...
And in Ukraine, it's an open country with excellent economic conditions, with great living conditions, so that you can have as many children as possible, so that you can raise them. The education is excellent, healthcare is top-notch. And the fight against corruption, well, it's just legendary. There's nothing like it anywhere else in the world. There's nothing else like it.
A rebellion is frightening because of the bloodshed, and you know, it takes a long time to get started, but once it does, it moves quickly. That's also possible, and we need to create these conditions. And what does the enemy do? First of all, the enemy, this is not a response, it's pressure on society. Society is tired of the war.
It's very difficult. Well, it's even worse here than with Fadina because, well, here... That's how it is. Goodbye, everyone.